So Dex, thank you so much for joining us for the Doha Debates chat.
Sure.
I wanted to first of all get a sense of how you are involved within the AI and technology kind of realm. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I work with a lot of AI companies, all scales and types, from startups to large global tech platforms, and I usually help AI leaders and companies tell their stories for their customers, for the industry, and for society.
Now, you've worked with some of the big ones, Facebook, Google. You've really kind of been through the whole raft of them. I want to understand from your perspective, as someone who's worked in communications, why are these companies so bad at telling the globe, the wider world, the benefits of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I mean, I would probably start by challenging the contention that they're bad at telling the story. I think the debates that we have about AI in our society tend to veer towards the simplistic. And you have lots of folks who are driving these debates who tend to present technology in very sensationalist ways. And the way that these companies have talked about these things, because frankly they work on building and innovating in this technology, tends to be the exact opposite. They tend to talk about things they're actually doing, which are often quite nuanced, which is very unsatisfying for people when you're looking for a sensationalist and simplistic answer. So I think actually big tech companies have been doing a tremendous amount to build quite valuable, long-term, very impactful, but ultimately in the short term, quite boring sounding technologies.
So does this mean that perhaps the audience, the consumer of these technologies, the end consumer at the end of the day, are expecting it to go wrong, and because we want it to go wrong, then that's the narrative we choose to hear?
Partly. I think the debate about AI is an offshoot of a larger discussion about the role of the tech industry in our society and the role of tech in our lives. And right now we have this moment that we're all going through called the tech clash, where people are incredibly distrustful of technology. You see that in debates over things like social media. And AI is just another technology where people are fearful of decisions being made by tech elites and leaders who ultimately may seem very disconnected from our everyday lives and concerns. And if we don't trust them already on social media, which is our current generation of technology, when you're looking at AI, which presents infinitely new possibilities and opportunities for impact on our society, you may just be incredibly fearful of what those future decisions are going to hold for our lives.
Now, if we imagine that artificial intelligence, the programming, the coding, the writing of these algorithms, the data sets that are used are a reflection of humanity. What do you see when you look into that AI mirror? What do you see humanity looking like? I
see a world that is incredibly divided and riven by enormous social and economic and political crises and challenges. When you look at data about the world, you see how many problems we're going through if it's truly global data. And when you look into AI data sets which present our society and say this is how we should be responding to that, I don't think you could help but think we should be really responding to those underlying social, economic and political disasters and engaging with those debates at the top of our agenda, rather than actually focusing on things that just the AI industry or the tech industry should do on their own.
But they seem to accent it so well. Like it brings out all this sort of these AI programs that are facial recognition software that is inherently either biased or in fact racist, or sentinels or other kind of artificially intelligent machines that are kind of brutal in their preciseness. It reflects sort of the worst in humanity. So should AI be encouraged or let loose on the world if that is a threat that we face?
Well, the real question there is, I think there's two questions there. One is whether it should be released, and the other one is how can these issues be addressed? In terms of addressing them, if we're asking the tech industry to deal with the fact that there are fundamental social inequalities in society, the fact that we have racism and a lack of diversity, not just in the tech industry, but in society as a whole, we're begging to be disappointed. If we're asking for us to avoid the conditions that lead to war, the reasons why nation states want killer robots in the first place, and we think that the tech industry can magic those away with new algorithms or ethical controls, again, we're begging people to be disappointed.
It can make it worse though, can't it?
It absolutely could make it worse, but we're not going to stop that technology. We're not going to be able to put the genie back in the bottle. All we can choose to do is try to address those underlying conditions.
I don't necessarily hold Facebook or Google responsible for poverty or, let's say, racism, but what I'm saying is, can artificial intelligence kind of exacerbate that if we don't take everything into consideration? I mean, you've worked for some of these companies on a communications level, but also a lot of these kind of tech giants as well. So what do you feel like on a personal level about these issues, and how are they considering it?
New technology absolutely can exacerbate any number of tensions in our society. Frequently it does. The solutions, though, absolutely require us to have that debate with a broader cast of characters than just the tech industry. That is the key. And nobody is saying, a tech platform leads to racism in society. But the problem is we don't even talk about that debate about racism in our society. We focus purely on algorithmically what went wrong and what the tech industry should be doing to fix that algorithm. You cannot fix those things on their own. There is no algorithmic solution to injustice in our society, and that is the key thing. We need to join those two debates up. It's not about excusing the tech industry from their failures, because there's plenty of those, and I'm a huge cheerleader for tech, and I still recognize all of those things. It's about saying we need to solve these things with the engagement of politicians, with civil society, with society as a whole as well. I think that a lot of those political and policymaker elites love to focus on the dysfunctions which are apparently existing in AI and in tech, rather than admitting to their failed leadership on a whole bunch of social and economic policies. It's much, much easier to blame artificial intelligence and technology for the potential of destroying jobs than to admit that as a politician, you have failed to put in place a strong social and economic framework for supporting populations through periods of technological change, for dealing with the failed consequences of globalization gone wrong.
But these tech industries do have the ear of almost every politician and global leader on the planet because they have such wealth and such capability. They are, whether they like it or not, political entities and have political influence.
Sure.
Why not wield that? Why not use that for the benefit of mankind if that's their intention?
I think they are all the time.
Are they doing it effectively?
Well, that's totally up for debate. But I think you're also forgetting that every other industry has massive political clout, in many cases much, much greater. The tech industry is a very young industry. The modern internet industry is, a couple of decades old, essentially. You're going up against massive incumbent industries which have been around in some cases for centuries and are intertwined with government elites in many, many countries. And they're all competing for priorities and attention as well. Certainly, I think, there are many cases where public policy efforts could have been better organized. But the shoe is on the other foot as well. We have terrible quality politicians who do not understand technology whatsoever. Last year, you had Mark Zuckerberg speaking in front of a Senate committee, and you had the spectacle of senators saying, Mark Zuckerberg, how does Facebook make money? I mean, ridiculous. I mean, they couldn't even do 5 minutes of Googling beforehand to get some basic facts for their debate. And you're asking these people to make decisions on AI, a technology with fundamental implications for the future of our society. I don't think so.
Whether we like it or not, artificial intelligence will substantially change the job market, will change the way finance, will change the way healthcare is run in the future. How do we make sure that these, not to put words in your mouth, but these archaic politicians are on board and they support artificial intelligence to grow in a healthy and constructive way? And whose responsibility is that?
The responsibility is of all citizens to demand politicians who take these issues seriously, put them up on the political agenda, and actually understand what they're talking about.
But I don't know how an algorithm works, Dex. I'm just a normal person.
That sounds like there's a responsibility of you to get educated about these things. That's not something tech companies are going to do for you. That's not something that anyone else is going to do for you. There is a responsibility as an individual to educate yourself about these things. At some point, we as individuals have to take responsibility for the future of our society, and AI is one of those massive challenges for our future that we absolutely must learn about. And yes, there are things we can do as a society to help all of us better achieve that.
Now you're on the DD brand, the Doha Debates brand, solutions.
Right.
Tell me.
Technological literacy. We have a whole population of people who's being trained, in all sorts of things. But technology, which is fundamental to our future, is often taught in a completely patchwork kind of way. In many schools, we don't teach about technology. We teach about IT. We teach you how to do word processing. We teach you how to use the internet or Excel spreadsheets. But what about the impact of tools on our democracy? What about the impact of social media on news and on information? These are questions that we as consumers need to have. And these are things that politicians should absolutely be promoting and ensuring are integrated into curricula if they want to have a healthy democratic society at the end of the day.
Dex Torricke-Barton, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks a lot.